What up, perps? Kid Copious. Back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, common sense, freedom, and standing with Israel. We all know what happened over the weekend. A bunch of psychopathic incels stormed into Israel, kidnapping, raping, mutilating, torturing men, women, young and old, babies. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to show you a bunch of gross footage or anything. This week there is not going to be a confetti gun. So before we start the show, pray to whatever God you pray to. If it's not a God that you pray to, if you don't pray, please just take a moment of silence right now and reflect upon the lives that have been shattered by ideology and rhetoric. So the mask is always smiling. Underneath, I'm not. And I think it's important to maybe explain where I'm coming from. I've grown up all my life knowing what the people of Israel and Jews across the world had to suffer through. The Holocaust, World War II, slavery in Egypt. These are a people who persevered. These are a people who I've known all my life. I've known Jewish people, I've known rabbis, I've done fire life safety at temples where the school children who attended the preschool to 6th grade had to be escorted to their parents' vehicles by armed guards. I know what it's like. I feel their pain. And you want to know something? I've never been judged by them. For the most part, they are pro-choice. They don't really have any outspoken opinions upon the LGBT community. I don't know how they feel about weed, but I don't think they would care. I've known them and respected them my entire life. That's all my connection is. I am not Israeli. I am not Jewish. But one of the things that always stood out in my mind was the fact that they fought back no matter the odds. And here's a few examples of that from the most recent episode of hatred towards Jews. 22-year-old Israeli Lieutenant Eden Nimri was killed in fighting in southern Israel over the weekend. She was an international swimmer who was serving her military. She was a lieutenant in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and a commander of a drone unit. And she was fighting against Hamas in a southern village. And she lost her life. 20-year-old girls do not need to be dying in combat. But in Israel, that's what it takes to survive. Here's another one. A hero woman, 25, Inbal Lieberman. When her kibbutz was attacked, she rushed out, distributed guns among the 12-member security team, and spent the next 4 hours fighting Hamas. She herself killed 5 terrorists. The other soldiers killed at least 20 others. There are so many examples of this. A husband and wife locked their 2 little infant twins in a safe house, in a safe room. They went out and engaged Hamas to draw fire away from and attention away from the safe room. They died. We watched as these psychopathic incels kidnapped women, children, old ladies, and drove them off. There were people who were happy that they knew that their 8-year-old daughter had died instead of being taken off by these people. What Hamas did was pure evil. And I know one thing about Israel. When they are confronted by pure evil, they don't fuck around. And we know now from plans retrieved from dead Hamas fighters that this was their intent. They went to that festival to murder young people. They were ordered to attack schools and collect hostages. That was their intent. That is the enemy that Israel has to fight. People who plan on kidnapping children and murdering young people. They don't view Israelis as citizens. There is no delineation between a fighter and a non-combatant. That's some gross shit, man. That's what's going on over there. Mark Levine here. Biden rebuilt the Palestinian war machine. They did. They gave money to Palestinian authorities for humanitarian purposes, which is what we're going to hear a lot of. But you know what? If you have $1 million and you have to spend half of it taking care of your citizens and half of it buying weapons, and then somebody gives you $1 million to take care of your people, you now turn around and use your $1 million to buy weapons. That's how they did it. We're going to see a lot of examples of finger pointing and trying to shift the blame. But at the end of the day, that's what it was. Palestine, the people of Gaza, are ruled by Hamas. Plain and simple. Right here. Not a penny has been spent. And then we're talking about the $6 billion that was just given to Iran. Not a penny has been spent. And when it is, it can only go for humanitarian needs, like food and medicine. Right there. I'll give you $6 billion if you only use it for humanitarian purposes. You have my word, says the Ayatollah, sitting on a giant bomb labeled humanitarian purposes. That's how it works. We here in the West tend to think that everybody thinks like us, but they don't. Okay? They don't think the same way. Cultural differences, whatever it may be, religious differences. We cannot take people at their word. We know what's going on. We need a firm hand. Under Trump, it was all about getting peace deals signed, and there was no war. Why? Because he wasn't going to F around. He wasn't going to give people money knowing where that money was going to end up. And this is it right here. U.S. gives the money to Iran. Iran gives it to Hamas. Hamas buys rockets and throws it into Israel. That's the reality. Iran sponsors Hamas and Hezbollah in the north. That's what they do. Iran wants to destroy Israel. Why? I'll tell you one reason. Because when Iran is trying to build nuclear reactors and enrich uranium to make bombs, Israel sends a strike force. Israel has sunk ships in French ports that were carrying parts for Iran's nuclear program. They have attacked Iran's nuclear reactors. They attacked Iraqi nuclear reactors. Israel does not fuck around. When you are surrounded by wolves, you either act like a honey badger or a snake. Two choices. That's it. You either get ferocious and you take on everybody around you, or you die. And when the U.S. is giving money to those wolves, it's kind of contradictory. We'll get to more of that. I didn't want to get off on that tangent. The Obama administration acknowledges that $1.7 billion transferred to Iran was all cash, using non-USA currency. Obama was sending him money. Biden was sending him money. You see, this is one of my problems with the left. They don't acknowledge the truth in front of them. They have their own preferred truth, and they'll do everything to keep it afloat. This Republican aide was talking. He says there's a straight line from Obama's giveaway to Iran to Biden's enriching of Iran to Iran's war on Israel. It's pure and simple. I don't care how much 1.7 billion equals Iran's gross national product and all that bullshit. Why are we giving money to Iran? So that they don't make nuclear weapons, which they're making, and we know they are? They are going to take our money until we don't give it anymore, and then they're going to build their nuclear weapon, and they're going to immediately threaten Israel. And once they threaten Israel, everything else kicks off. World War III goes straight through the Middle East. Remember, humanitarian only, right? Right, that's to American Israel. Why are we giving people money? We are negotiating with straight up terrorists. And they're not negotiating in good faith. Come on. Do you really think that money that we give to Iran is going to go to good things? No. They may spend Joe Biden $6 billion. Fortunately, just to clarify, he has refrozen that money, but they already got money from us. And there's other sources of money that they're getting because of Biden. Get to that in a second. It is foolish to think that the money is not just fungible and they'll spend $6 billion on food and take their $6 billion and spend it on weapons. It's the way it works. It's just a trade-off. We know this, but yet these lefties seem to think that you can negotiate with evil. Can't. Biden feeding Iran money and he's taking two shits, Hamas and Hezbollah, right on Israel. Because that's the truth of the matter. That's what it really is. That's what we see. That's what we know. That's what's documented. That's what Iran itself even says. One of the correlations people have been trying to make is that Iran sponsoring terrorism is a lot like the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. If you think about this for a second, if you were a police officer and some guy put his hand inside of his jacket and said, I have a gun, are you going to treat that man as though he doesn't have a gun? So if Iran says that they want to destroy Israel, why shouldn't we believe them? Because up in the kooky left brain, you think your way is going to achieve world peace and you're just going to discount everything and undercut it and change it and spin it so that the world thinks that they're at peace when they're really not. Hey, Biden and Obama feeding billions to Iran, who then fire missiles on Israel. These are the things that go on. Hamas, Hezbollah say Iran helped plan deadly attack on Israel. Yet we here in the West are hearing, and the BBC, the Canadian broadcasting system, we'll get to them. They're doing the same thing too. Everybody is trying to disprove Iranian involvement. Hamas and Hezbollah say Iran helped plan it. Iran held planning meetings with terror groups to attack Israel and kill civilians. The Ayatollah comes out. Zionist regimes will be eradicated at the hands of the Palestinian people and the resistance forces throughout the region. There you go. He's saying it himself. He's backing it. New York Times, not exactly a right-wing paper, right? Say that in March, the leader of Hezbollah conducted extended meetings online with Iran-backed strategists. He told the Iranian-backed groups to prepare for war with Israel. According to two of the online participants, it would mark a new era. Training for the attacks took place in Syria and Lebanon, based on information from Iranians and Assyrians with knowledge of the attacks. There was even a secret joint command center established in Beirut. And I think it's important to pause here for a second and think about Lebanon and Beirut. They used to be Christian countries. They used to be at peace with everybody. But slowly but surely, the radical Muslims took control, started persecuting the Christians who had to leave their land. So let's keep that in mind when we think about stolen land and all that shit. All right? It cuts both ways. But we're going to pretend here with our dipshitty leaders that Iran had nothing to do with this. Well, look at it. Huh? They had Hezbollah create distractions to convince the Israeli military. This is what we did in World War II, where we made it look like we were going to invade Europe through the Calais instead of Normandy. So, one of the big White House talking points right now is trying to diffuse this whole idea that the $6 billion prisoner exchange wasn't used in this attack. Kind of a non-starter for me. Any weakness shown towards Iran is going to result in violence. But one of the things the Biden administration did was it appointed this guy, Robert Malley, here. Malley got different Iranian operatives into positions where they made multiple appearances in Western media and wrote a number of pieces favorable to Iran. They visited the White House and talked nice things about Iran. Some of them are even, I mean, what is this right here? An Iranian operative is the current chief of staff for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Spec Ops. Still not even fired. Still not even fired. But Malley and his negotiating team purposely funneled billions of dollars to Iran through a lack of sanction enforcement. $50 to $80 billion over the last 2.5 years. There's your money. But no, they want to talk about the inane GOP claim that Iran prisoner swap fueled Hamas attack. Nikki Haley said it too. Whether they spent the money or not, it's the weakness that Biden showed. Biden gave them $6 billion and 5 terrorists, and all we got was 5 Iranian Americans. Now, I'm glad for those families. I'm glad for those people that they were freed from Iran. The cost was too fucking high. It's not a deal I would have made. Okay? And no, they didn't use the $6 billion because it's still frozen. In fact, it's even more frozen now to fund the attack. It was the weakness that was shown by Biden. That's why they didn't do this under Trump. Oh, it's been frozen. It's been frozen, they keep saying. No, it's the weakness that you showed. This is a great example of how that $50 to $80 billion came into Iran through Biden being a weak and soft mental case and all of his lefty cronies working so hard, not enforcing sanctions. Iranian oil exports have reached almost 2 million barrels a day, a sharp contrast to the limited 400,000 barrels exported a day in 2020 under President Trump. That's why they're attacking. They know. They know Trump's reaction would have been much different than Biden's and not in their favor. Homeland Security investigations have not seized an Iranian oil shipment in over a year, despite the fact that the organization's primary responsibility is sanctions enforcement. There you go. Lack of action. Even getting bipartisan support, because even some of the people that are Democrats are not far left. They're not so convoluted in the head that they can't see it. The Biden administration has likely made such concessions to get Iran back to the negotiating table because, Biden signed this joint comprehensive plan of action with Iran, and like Trump got rid of it. Well, why did Trump get rid of it? Because it contained too many exemptions. And he put severe economic sanctions in place. Instead of playing nice with Iran, Trump played hardball. But Obama was soft with Iran, so Biden has to be soft with Iran. It's fucking stupid, man. You can't play soft with China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. You can't just... I don't even want to get started on some of this. I'm trying to stay on point. One thing you hear bantied about a lot is stolen land. And as this older cartoon points out, Israel gave West Bank, gave Gaza to the Palestinians, and they immediately point rockets and say, yeah, we want that piece. You can't appease terrorists until the terrorists gets what they want. So what? Israel needs to leave? We should allow these fuckwads to just destroy that country and kill all the people? Is that really what we think? Israel has been under the ownership of damn near everybody. The Canaanites, the Israelites, when they left Egypt. Egypt at one point controlled Israel. Britain controlled Israel last, right before World War II, when we had to figure out, well, where are we going to put all these Jews that we freed? They certainly don't want to go back to Germany. Certainly don't want to go back to the countries that locked them up and sent them off in boxcars. So we gave them Israel. Keep in mind, before that, Romans, the Macedonians, the Crusaders, everybody has been on that property. That property has been a hotbed for as long as humans have been, well, somewhat modern humans, let's say, biblical times. But one way you know the bullshit of the stolen land theory is the fact that the largest Muslim center there, Temple Mount, is built on top of a Jewish temple. They would love to get under the Temple Mount and explore for Crusader artifacts and things dating back in time, but they can't because there is a mosque on top of it. It's not stolen land, folks. It's certainly not apartheid. Talib came out and said, as long as our country provides billions in unconditional funding to support the apartheid government. Cori Bush, another wackadoodle, right? We must do our part to stop this violence and trauma by ending U.S. government support for Israeli military occupation and apartheid, right? You know, a really quick way of summing this whole thing up is if Hamas laid down their weapons, there would be peace. If Israel laid down their weapons, there'd be no more Israel. That's the way it works, folks. In South Africa, where they had actual apartheid, blacks were kept out of the government and out of the social structures and things like that, solely based on the color of their skin. There was no logic to it. It was just racism. In Israel, it's quite a different story because it's not apartheid. They are allowing the people of Gaza to govern themselves. Who did they choose? Hamas. Israel cannot become an integrated government because the opposition is looking out for their destruction. That's what they would be working towards. It needs to be a Jewish state because it needs to be a Jewish state. Everybody else in that region hates Jews. So how are you going to put them on your board? How are you going to put some of these radical Muslims in your government and expect it to work? There has to be separation. And the people that are being separated are the ones who hate the most. They're the ones who are actively engaging in terror. Gaza, Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2006, 2007, and they elected Hamas, a group whose founding documents talk about the destruction of Israel and death to Jews. So yeah, they have to be kept separate. That's just the way it is. And when you threaten their country, they're going to react like a honey badger. They are. They're going to get wild. They're going to strike out. I mean, when Egypt, Syria, and Jordan all attacked, Israel fought them off. Israel defeated their neighbors. Their neighbors still are not sympathetic towards them. They're not at peace. They're just not at war right now. And during the 6-Day War, Israel took the Sinai Peninsula, which they gave back to Egypt. They took the Gaza Strip, which they kept, which is where the Palestinians now live. It's not up to Israel to make Gaza a great place. Speaking of honey badgers, Nikki Haley here. Finish Hamas. They should have hell to pay. Yeah, they should. Because Hamas is Gaza. Gaza is Hamas. That is the whole crux of the problem. 53% of people in the last poll supported Hamas in Gaza. So what are you supposed to do? How do you make peace with the so-called Palestinians when the Palestinians are aligned with Hamas, who have vowed to destroy your country? How? How do you integrate that? You can't. And can the people of Gaza leave Hamas? No. Hamas has the guns. Thank you, Second Amendment. Because here, we don't have to live under dictators and crazy fanatical groups that don't care about us, that use us as human shields. Because we can fight back. Like those young women who fought off Hamas in their little villages. They were armed because they were in the military. Same thing here. Hamas rolls into town, depending on what town, and they're going to find some pretty fucking heavy resistance. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. That's why the Second Amendment is important. When the Founding Fathers came up with the Second Amendment, defending yourself with a firearm or hunting for food with a firearm was just a way of life. That didn't even need to be specified. Obviously, you had guns for protection and hunting. The bigger issue that they put the Second Amendment in for was so that the citizens had power to fight back against the government. You don't think it'll happen here? Okay. Good luck with that. Good luck. Because, the way some of you felt about Trump, you thought he was the next coming of Hitler. So what were you going to do if Trump took power? At what point does the citizenry have to stand up and fight back against the government? They didn't do it in Gaza. Hamas rules it. Hamas wants to destroy Israel. Israel's going to destroy Gaza. It's the way it goes. We were talking about this. This is the charter of Hamas. The day of judgment will not come until Muslims fight the Jews, when the Jews will hide behind stones and trees. The stones and trees will say, "O Muslim, O servant of God, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him." That's why they're butchered. That's why they go out and butcher Jews. That's their feelings on the subject. And keep in mind, unlike some people, the UK, the EU, and the United States have all declared Hamas to be a terror organization. They're just like ISIS or the Taliban. Sure, they run a country, but they're also terrorists. Just the way it works. This frightens me. Progressives call for U.S. to take in some of the expected 1 million Gaza refugees. And of course, they try to, Jamil Bowman, Mr. Fire Alarm over here, said 50% of the population in Gaza are children. Right. 50% are adults. And the adults will come with the children. I don't get your point. But we should allow refugees from Palestine while being very careful to vet and not allow members of Hamas. Much like our southern border. Come on. That's a great plan. You'll never fucking do it. They will come over here en masse. I'm sorry. But we have seen that in modern day, radicalized Islamic followers create hellish problems. Just what it is. And before you could become radicalized in a religion, you must be a member of that religion, a member of those people. So I think we should be really careful. And keep in mind, as we're going to get into a little bit later, why aren't the Muslim countries taking in the refugees of the Muslim people? Maybe because the neighbors in that region don't want the Palestinians either. They want no part of it. Egypt has a border wall with Gaza. It's 8.5 miles long, 20 feet high, and it extends 60 feet below the surface. That's a serious fucking wall, okay? There's only one accessible checkpoint. People in Gaza can't go into Egypt and work because Egypt won't let them. They can't immigrate to Egypt because Egypt doesn't want them. The neighbors in that region know that for the most part, the Palestinians are on the side of Hamas. You just can't let them in your country. I didn't make the rules, man. Why should we take in people from halfway around the world when the people that are already over there don't want them? Does that make any sense? No. Hamas uses citizens as shields. Let's talk about that for a second. Hamas put a rocket battery on a school roof. Now, Israel has two choices. They could either spare the school and the rockets, which will then be launched into Israel, or they could bomb the school and Hamas will use it as propaganda. Because propaganda is almost worth more than the rocket attack itself. That's what they do. And the Western media goes on and talks about, oh gosh, look at this big building that was blown up. Yeah, if your enemy puts their base under a hospital, you have to blow up the hospital. It's shitty, but Israel did not choose to put Hamas's headquarters under a hospital or a rocket battery on top of a school or hide weapons inside of a mosque. But they know, even if they lose the weapons in the mosque, the fucking propaganda. This is a prime example. Larry Elder right here pointing this one out. I don't think he drew it. I think he just posted it. But the Israeli soldiers standing in front of the baby carriage, Hamas is behind the baby carriage. That's what we've seen. That's what they do. They use our compassion against us. And they know they have supporters because you got idiots. Bernie Sanders criticizes Israeli offensive in Gaza as a serious violation of international law. The targeting of civilians is a war crime, no matter who does it. Israel's blanket denial of food, water, and other necessities in Gaza is a serious violation of international law and will do nothing but harm innocent civilians. You know what the truth is? The truth is that Israel has been warning residents of the northern part of Gaza to get south because we're coming. They turn off the food, the water, the electricity. They turn that stuff off so that the people in Gaza leave. They don't want civilians there. You know what stops the civilians from leaving? Hamas. Hamas wants a high body count because then the international community will wring its hands and go, oh no, Israel killed all these children. Well, who put the children on the front line? Who forced the civilians to stay there? Egypt opened up its borders to allow foreigners out of Gaza, but not the people of Gaza. Israel is doing everything it can to spare the citizens. Part of the issue was that Hamas, of course, expected a ceasefire immediately. And that the West is quick to be passive. Essentially, Hamas gets to slaughter Jews, and the West says Israel can't retaliate. And you see the media groups, the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, don't label them terrorists. The BBC, don't label them terrorists. What the hell else was that? Those were not the actions of freedom fighters. You've seen the movie Red Dawn. The Wolverines attacked tanks and military installations and tried to free prisoners. They didn't go after people's citizenry. Right? And of course, yesterday we saw knife attacks in China and in France because all around the world, radicalized Muslims join forces with other radicalized Muslims. Sure, there's parallels with other groups, but it's not what's happening right now today. The reason they were expecting the ceasefire was that Western liberals were going to pressure weak-ass Biden into stopping Israel. Oops. Well, we're sending weapons because there's no way in this current climate that you are going to get away with trying to stop Israel or side with Palestine or the Hamas or Hezbollah up in the north. We're fed up. We're watching as our cities and our towns are being destroyed by these liberal policies. Everything's so fucking expensive. We've had it up to here with the shenanigans of the Democrats. We're not going to let them get away with their normal tactics. Although, as we've seen, it's what it is. This one sums it up. Islam downgraded to a religion of mostly peace. Our media, our left wing, think that these people are a legitimate resistance. But then again, these are the same knuckleheads who wear Che Guevara t-shirts, right? And pro-Palestinian marches erupted everywhere. There was one at Long Beach College. Why? Because people who have been educated are often educated under one point of view, with one set of facts designed to support what the professor says. They don't possess the ability to look at things from different viewpoints. And so they think, of course, it's a resistance. But the Democratic Socialists of America, the squad, rallied in support of these people. AOC, Tlaib, Bush, Omar, fire alarm dude, some guy I never heard of from Texas. Oh, Summer Lee. Sounds like a song to me. But they announced right after the attacks that they were having an all-out for Palestine demonstration. Really? With footage of women being kidnapped, old ladies being driven off in golf carts, half-naked women beaten up and then put on display. You thought it was a good idea to stand up for Palestine because they're the resistance. You guys are fucking idiots. When Jews are murdered and raped, Rashida Tlaib blames the Jews. Yeah. She is an active member of our government. And she wants to label the pro-Palestinian movement as a resistance. Great. And she flies a Palestinian flag. She's Palestinian. I don't hold that against her, except that it really does not make Palestinian people look good. Because this bitch is crazy. All right? There again, she sounded off about unconditional weapon sales and military aid to Israel. Without our support, Israel would fall. And she knows it. But she uses the atrocities of the Hamas attack to call for cutting off military aid to the people who were attacked. That is, in the guy who removed her, or, she was removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee by a Republican, and they're pointing that out. Israel was just brutally attacked by terrorists funded by Iran, and you want to cut off funding and military aid and equipment. You are out of your mind and unfit to serve the House of Representatives. This is why you were removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee. These people shouldn't hold power. These are radicalized people. All right? The squad, the Democratic Socialists of America. I understand the concept of not wanting innocent people in Gaza to be killed or harmed or made to suffer. But, much like Hamas does not see Israeli citizens, it's hard to see citizens in Gaza. All right? They allowed Hamas to do what Hamas did, to build up power in that region, to put those rocket launchers there. But again, they don't have a Second Amendment, so for the most part, the guy with the AK-47 could put his rocket battery wherever he wants. Be a little different story here. If we had an equivalent Hamas here, I think you'd find it would be different. But this is some examples of just how out of touch the left is and how much they will take one point and stick with that one point despite evidence to the contrary. Not gay as in happy, queer as in free Palestine. Ian up there wouldn't last a day in Gaza. No, you're right. Queers for Palestine. Right. The reality is this. Palestinian flag outside Rashida Tlaib's office seen throwing pride flag off roof. Or N wokeness puts it good here. You may support the current thing, but the current thing doesn't support you. No, they don't. If you think Christians in America are hard on LGBT communities, look at what they do in these radicalized Muslim-led countries. They throw gay people off roofs. They do. They don't like you. They will destroy you. They want to kill Jews because they are Jewish. They do not tolerate homosexuality. They may be pro-choice. I don't know about that one. But I'll tell you this. They are not pro-LGBT. And nothing summed it up better than the Harvard students protesting. And God, they are going to regret it. There are groups out there right now of billionaires who own massive companies, financial companies that control other companies. And they want the list of these people who signed off supporting Hamas and what Hamas did. And like Babylon B points out here, Harvard student leaves lecture on microaggressions to attend Kill the Jews rally. And they're being doxxed right now. A lot of the people involved with that have their pictures, names, and social media being displayed on a truck that is driving around. The dox truck, they call it. If you support these people, I'm afraid that I'm going to have to label you a danger. Harvard or not. They learn one point of view. They are not allowed to think for themselves. That's what the left continually pushes. One point, our point. And we are going to spin all the evidence to support our point. And these are the people. These are our politicians who stood with Hamas. AOC's backed out a little bit. And you look at that group of nitwits. Cortez, Omar, Presley, Tlaib, Bowman, fire alarm guy. Cori Bush, oh Jesus, the guy I don't even know. And the woman, I guess that's Summer Lee. Summer Lee makes me feel fine. When AOC is the sensible one of the bunch, you might want to just pack it all in. Okay? You might want to just pack it all in. But look at them. They're trying to relate to the kids, the resistance. We're on your side. Right. Shit, even in Iran, at a football game, fans started to demand the removal of Palestinian flags and express support for Israel. See, in Iran, they're standing up to their fascist government. People in Gaza did not stand up to Hamas. They didn't. They went along with it. And that's, part of the problem. I'm going to shift quickly here. Look at the border here. You got Mayorkas. Beware of MAGA and climate change as Islamic terrorists are just coming across the border. And they are. There's no risk. They show up. They're going to give you a cell phone and track you. Meanwhile, fentanyl and human trafficking, of course, are the ones lifting the ribbon there for the Islamic terrorists to go underneath. Because, again, the Democrat talking points are MAGA is bad and climate change is bad. But fentanyl, human trafficking, terrorism coming across an open border, no, we have more important things, MAGA. We got to make sure we stamp out MAGA because that's the big problem in America. Climate change, of which we're doing a hell of a lot about. Other countries doing nothing, us doing all the heavy lifting, but that's what we should be concerned about. Sure. Right. And then this recently came out that 90% of illegal immigrants released under Biden have not claimed asylum. So what the fuck are they doing here? They're just showing up for the free cash? I'm going to give some credit to Karine Jean-Pierre here. She's a nitwit. I don't like her at all, but I will give her credit where credit is due, that she blasted the far left squad, calling their comments on the war between Israel and Hamas as wrong, repugnant, and disgraceful. Our condemnation, she says, belongs squarely with terrorists who have brutally murdered, raped, kidnapped hundreds of Israelis. There can be no equivocation about that. There are not two sides here. There are not two sides here. And there aren't. But you know what? Here's a good start. GoFundMe to send in the squad to Gaza already says $5 million. Yeah, y'all move there. Look at that for a second. Boy needs some water. And just to remind everybody, of course, Patrice Collier's founder of Black Lives Matter called for the end of Israel back in 2015. One of these local ones, Black Lives Grassroots or something, came out in support recently. Of course, saying they stand with Palestine. Wow, that's not going to age well. And again, because I like to be fair here, I am not a Justin Bieber fan, but it is funny that he posted support of Israel featuring an image of Gaza destruction. I don't know. I didn't really have, I saw it. I didn't really kind of have a problem with it. I mean, it's probably not the best look, but I don't know. But we're going to touch on two things really quick before we get out of here. Not Middle East related. Border agent on letting gang members go. I feel like I'm part of the smuggling organization. They know they're letting in gang members from other countries. Hundreds of adult males, mostly from Venezuela, with tattoos and tough manners. You know that they are gang members, but there is no database to pass them off, and they won't admit it, so we can't document them as gang members. They're just being released into the United States. Scott went on to say, I feel like I'm part of the smuggling operation. Yeah. Look how many people. In 2022, okay, there was 2.7 million people who came across the border. In 2020, 600,000. 2022, 2.7 million. So far, in 2023, 2.8 million. And those are the people who have been caught and processed. Well, processed, come on. And look, they have a saying called give-ups. Asylum seekers who find the Border Patrol agents because they want to be detained so they can be processed and released and likely receive aid from non-governmental agencies. So we're looking at like 5 million people coming in. Many of them have no support system here. Yeah, it's not going to be, that's not going to work out well. They're coming after Amazon Prime now. They call it a monopoly, when in reality, it's not a monopoly. I don't even understand, like, why they do this, but they need to blame somebody, right? That they need to consumer welfare standards and stuff. But, you know, the real story is that Amazon partners with 2 million small businesses, including many mom and pop vendors that otherwise lack the sophisticated tech and logistics infrastructure to reach a massive customer audience. I am not a fan of Amazon. I'm not. But Amazon did not kill brick and mortar. The internet did. Somebody was going to kill a lot of brick and mortar when the internet became a marketplace. But let's get this straight. A monopoly means a great market maker artificially inflates prices. In an oligopoly, a few big players do this. Amazon is the opposite. It vigorously competes to lower prices. But Biden needs a scapegoat. And right now, one of the big scapegoats that we have here in America is tech companies. And really quick here, because I'm not going to allow the war in the Middle East to distract us from the shit going on here. Biden last week celebrated his administration's job data, showing 336,000 new jobs created. That's Bidenomics, he boasted. Right. There's one problem. There was no job growth among full-time jobs. Those jobs actually went down. The jobs that you're seeing being added are because people are working on a desperation to pay their bills. In other words, they're working two jobs. They're working multiple part-time jobs. They're working multiple full-time jobs. Bidenomics is the first system in our history that has actually made job creation an ominous economic indicator because they have lost control of the economy. Inflation is off to the races. But fear not, you will be working multiple jobs to pay bills and nothing more until you die. Embrace the power of Bidenomics. Yeah, but through his loan bailout and all of that, he's now racked up $2 trillion in deficit. That is the quickest debt accumulation without a world war, pandemic, or recession. And those numbers are still being added to because there's new debt. Payroll taxes down 17%. So, wait a minute. If we've added all these jobs, shouldn't payroll taxes be going up? No, because it's the sectors in which you're seeing the growth. It's the kinds of jobs that you're seeing. You're seeing people working a lot of jobs for little money. So, ultimately, they are celebrating a symptom of a very destructive trend in which obtaining one solid full-time job is no longer enough for a lot of people to afford living. There you go. Mortgage rates, 8%, car loan interest rates at their highest in 22 years, and credit card interest rates at a record high. That's Bidenomics. They want this shit covered up because they come out and take credit for jobs added and think that and want us to believe that that's a good thing, when in reality, it's a symptom of a huge problem. It is too expensive. Our debt is too high. Inflation is out of control. And because the Fed has to raise interest rates, it's basically starting to fuck everybody. That's Bidenomics. Bidenomics, fucking everybody. Well, been here long enough now. I'm Kid Copious. I pray for Israel. I'm Purple State, and so are you. Love one another, and try to look at everything you believe through a second point of view. It might make you smarter. Peace.